Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
I'm Michael, and we're excited you join us for this adventure.
So today's very amazing, funny guest is Josh Ferrari. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Whoop, whoop. Glad to be here, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And just to let our audience know, how we met Josh, I mean, it was another one of those great networking events, but what is awesome is that every time we talk, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of laughs. Our vibes really go together very well. So it's not like, hey, we haven't talked in a while, this might be weird. It's always like, boom, how are you? What's up? Let's be best friends all over again. And so we are just really happy that you're here, and we cannot wait for you to share all of your greatness with our listeners.
Oh man, what an introduction. My greatness. Let's see if I can, what's the word I'm looking for? Meet those expectations.
I love it. So Josh, before we get started here, would you mind sharing with our Adventurous family, a little bit about your background and why you started investing in real estate?
My background was diddly squat, having to do with anything financial, investment, real estate, any of that. My background was I wanted to be a naval fighter pilot, and then I decided not to go that route because I wanted to be a family guy. So I ended up getting my airframe and power plant license, became an aircraft technician, moved from Memphis, Tennessee to Mobile, Alabama to start what I thought was going to be a long-standing career in aviation. Moved down here for 6 months, just got married, got out the honeymoon, moved my wife in, and then my dad calls me up one day in January of 2018 and tells me that him and my mom are getting ready to start flipping houses. And I was like, okay, where is this coming from? Where's the money coming from? Right. What does that look like? Because all I knew up to that point was what I had seen on HGTV, them flipping houses. And I'm like, they don't really dive too deep into the financial analysis and everything. But from what I feel like, from what I've seen, it costs a lot of money. Where are you guys going to come up with all this money to flip houses, first of all? And then we start talking about it, and every question I had, he had an intriguing answer. It kept getting more intriguing. So at the end of the conversation, I was like, all right, there's something here that is for me. Don't know what it is. I don't know if it's flipping, but there's got to be something in this real estate thing that I need to learn about. So I dove in head first. I probably read 40 books that first year. I was going to 3 different local real estate meetups. I was on Bigger Pockets. I just was trying to just soak up anything and everything I could. And I ended up getting started in wholesaling and did that for about 6 months. It didn't really work out. Wasn't for us. We didn't end up closing any deals, but so we pivoted a little bit. I said, okay, well, we really want the benefits of owning real estate. So what is that going to look like? So then we pivoted to a house hack, which initially I thought we were going to house hack a single family residence. And so I was looking at single family homes, thinking that's all we could afford. And I bring it to my newlywed wife, hey, this is a great idea. We can live in one unit, rent out the other bedrooms. It'll be great. And she's like, absolutely not. We're not doing it. I was like, well, why? She said, there's no way I'm letting strangers live in the room next to me. So my spirits were crushed. I was like, well, great. Now what are we going to do? How am I ever going to invest in real estate? And I just kept learning and talking to folks and started looking into small multis, which I still didn't have any money for. I was like, I don't know how we're going to do this, but this seems like it would make sense. So I talked to her about it, and she was like, yeah, I'd be okay with that because it's like an apartment. We have our own separate living space. So we're looking at small multis. We end up finding a 4-plex.
Oh, cool.
I think it's going to be this just banging deal. It's going to be awesome. It was the ugliest, nastiest, most dilapidated house in this awesome neighborhood. And that's what everyone always told me I needed to go after. If you want value add, get the ugliest house in the nicest neighborhood. So I had 4 different contractors look at it. I thought I was ready. I had called my dad up to help pay for the down payment. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. And we close, and it was a catastrophe. It was absolutely a living nightmare. the worst financial decision I probably ever made.
Wow.
But I learned a lot of lessons. It was basically the school of hard knocks for us.
Yeah.
Learned what we did want to do, like the lifestyle that we did want to live. Because up to that point, I always thought I was going to do what Brandon Turner calls the stack, which is like 2 units, 4 units, 8, 16. To eventually we got to the point where we wanted to be. And I thought it was all going to have to be my money. But I ended up finding out shortly thereafter, having closed that one, finding out about syndication. You can use other people's money and it doesn't have to just be me. And I can live a more passive lifestyle and it doesn't have to be so in the day-to-day of the property management. And I was the in-house maintenance guy and I did 80% of the renovation work myself. And I was like, oh, this is just too great. It's too good to be true. Like I don't have to do all this stuff myself as I continue to grow. So I ended up finding a mentor shortly thereafter. He was a guest speaker at a local real estate meetup coming over from Pensacola to Mobile. Talked to him afterwards, found out we both had aviation in common. That's kind of how we clicked. And then boom, I had my little organic mentor from there.
Nice.
Go ahead and fast forward to today. This is roughly 2 years and 9 months ago at this point. We now have 239 units, another 88 units under contract. We're looking at just so many deals. It's ridiculous. I mean, a lot of people say that they just can't find deals right now, but I think that is far from the issue. The deals are everywhere. So we're looking at a lot of other deals. We were trying to hit 1,000 units this year. It's looking like that'll probably roll over into next year. Our 3-year Vivid Vision, which is by the end of 2023 at this point, which is what this is right here on my wall, is to reach $100 million in assets under management, get out of the W-2, and finally make an impact on not only my life, but others' lives, as I'm sure we'll dive deeper into today.
No, I do too. Thanks so much. I do have one quick question because now I'm just curious. What happened to the fourplex?
Like financially?
I mean, high level, like, do you still have it? Did it?
No.
What happened when you sold it?
High level, we sold it January of this year, 2021.
Yeah.
And this was like 9 months ago. And I'm still digging myself out of the financial hole that one put us in.
Sorry. I feel like I just put salt in a wound.
No, it's okay. Because we're on the up and up. Obviously, we've had a lot of success since then. And I think a lot of it has come from properly partnering, because I think another huge mistake I made was that I tried to do literally everything all by myself when I had zero experience. So high level, that's what happened. If you want to go even deeper than that, we can.
Okay.
Let me know.
No, I want to go into something better and deeper. I want you to talk about Vivid Visions.
Yeah.
Vivid Visions.
That was my question.
Okay. Yeah. So I remember listening to one of the Bigger Pockets podcasts with Brandon Turner. It was the first one he ever came out with that talked about the Vivid Vision. It was right after he had read the book or something and he had implemented it on his own. And I was like, that sounds really cool. I think I want to do something like that. Let me see what I can come up with. And this was a little over probably 1.5 years, 2 years ago at this point. And so I tried to write what I settled basically for my version of a Vivid Vision, which because I read the book right after I heard the podcast and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And I got to do this. Yeah. But it was basically like, you need to go in detail and be very vivid and clear about everything you want to do in the future when you actually get there, what it's going to look like, how the company culture is going to be, how many employees you're going to have, like all the stuff. And I wasn't really like a writer at the point, and I was just like, you know what, bullet points will do. Like, I'll just do some bullet points. Like it's the same thing. Yeah, same thing for me. I'll understand it. I'll be hype about it. And so that's what I did. Set that up and then thought that was going to be sufficient, so to say, basically. And then it took another 1.5 years. And at that point, I think Bigger Pockets had another podcast interview with Cameron Harold again, literally talking about the Vivid Vision again. I think they were talking about something else, but of course they weaved that in there.
Right.
And I was like, what am I doing? I just got these dumb bullet points. I'm not excited about that. Like, it's cool, but I don't have clear vision of what I want. So how is anyone else supposed to have a clear vision? How am I supposed to be on the same page as my partners? I don't know. So let me sit down and write this thing. So it took me about a month to actually sit down, focus, and write down exactly what we wanted to do. But basically, at a high level, it is a clear, like crystal clear vision of the direction that you want to head in your life and or your business or your marriage or your finances, or what kind of impact you want to make, the lifestyle that you want to live when you get there, what it's going to look like, smell like, feel like, how the business culture is going to be, so to say. And so after I was able to think through all of that and write it down on paper, I sent it over to my business partners, and they read it and they were like, oh man, this is fantastic. And I was like, I mean, is this what you guys are thinking too? Like, I don't want to just take over the vision of the three of us, like, let me know, make changes. And they were like, I don't have any changes. Looks great. So I was like, well, that's awesome. Lets me know we're all on the same page. So we each printed one of these out. I don't know if they got it in their office or not, honestly, but I got it in my office. And so this is kind of like the goal that we're headed towards. And so now it's kind of like reverse engineering from there. We're now able to take what's in the vivid vision and kind of backtrack all the way to today, which the end of this vivid vision will be December of 2023. So we can say, okay, by December 2023, this is everything that we want. So what do we need to do today to get to that point? Like, who do we need to hire? Do we need to start hiring people? Do we need to start thinking about it? Do we start having these conversations? Do we like, it just kind of helps us reverse engineer where we're hoping to get. And it provides crystal clear clarity, not only internally, but also externally. So all investors that come in, lenders, brokers, anyone that wants to partner with us, they are able to see this vivid vision and be like, wow, you guys look like you definitely know where you're like, where you want to go. I'd love to be a part of that journey kind of thing. And so it kind of hypes people up on the external side of things as well.
I love that. I'll go real quick. And then
Okay.
But yeah, I love that because we are okay, let me back up. For our listeners who are listening, if you are listening, we also have a video version of this on our YouTube. Go check it out because you can see behind Josh is a large frame with his vivid vision printed out there, and it looks fantastic, like in column format, like a newspaper article, basically. That's what it looks like. And so to our listeners who are not familiar with Vivid Vision. So Vivid Vision is a book that Cameron Herold wrote. It's actually a pretty short book, but it's very detailed and straight to the point, and it's packed full of just amazing information. So Susie and I are in the process of drafting our Vivid Vision right now, and we're working on it because we want to make sure that it's right? We want to make sure that it's clear and concise, that no matter if we share it, because the whole point of it, as Josh was mentioning, is like you should be able to share this Vivid Vision with your investors, with your family, with your business partners, with vendors that you work with, your property management company, like anybody that comes in contact with your company, you should be able to share this vision with them. And then they totally understand, okay, where is this person going and where's this company going in growth wise? So yeah, vivid visions are just fantastic.
So, what's hard though, and you even brought it up, is like you had bullet points for a year and a half, because even getting past that, a lot of people don't think they're writers. I hear it all the time. Like, I can't create content. So like, if you can't create content for others, it's really hard to create content for yourself, because that's really what it is. Like, I know hearing him again made you do it again, but for people who don't hear him a second time, like what would you suggest for them, like to not be in the bullet point part for a year and a half?
I think it really comes down to, which, I mean, maybe this is cliche, I don't know, but it really comes down to your like passion and your why and what the reason for you doing this is in the first place. Because I knew what my passion was in my head, but I also didn't, because like I knew what I wanted, but then when I sat down to write it out, I was like, what's it going to look like? I don't know. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know kind of where I want to be. So then I had to even reverse engineer that and figure out what that was going to look like in a 3-year time frame. So I think just having the passion, one, is really going to help you get serious about it, because at the end of the day, you're not going to do it if you don't want to do it. It's just like working out. A lot of folks say that they want to get fit or they want to do this, but to them they feel like it's a chore. They feel like, okay, well, I've got to get up, I've got to eat healthy, I've got to go to the gym. Well, if you got that attitude about it, it's not going to last long. You're not really going to get all that fit and all that healthy. But if you get up every day and you're like, this is freaking awesome that I get to eat healthy, that I get to go work out, that I get to live a long standing life with my family or with whatever, then you'll have a different thought process and you'll be more motivated to do it. It's kind of the same thing with the vivid vision. And so if you're still out there and you think, well, all that stuff sounds great and I'm passionate about it, but like you said, I can't create any content. I don't know what the heck to write. So I will also say that there are companies out there that actually do this. One company in specific, I cannot remember the name for the life of me, but there, if you actually go check, maybe we'll post this in the show notes or something.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
gotta check out what that podcast episode on Bigger Pockets actually is, because they talk specifically. Cameron Harold actually recommends this company to help entrepreneurs and business owners write the vivid vision for you.
Oh, nice.
And they dive super deep into what everything looks like and your business. And then they have professional like copywriters who actually write it and make it look all nice and fancy for you. So you could go hire someone to do that. That's going to cost a little bit of money, but that will help you get across the finish line there. Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
No, thank you
Love it.
for
That's
that.
great.
Yeah, because it's like I like writing. I can close my eyes and be like, I see it, and I know when I want to put it on the piece of paper. So I love that this is going to go both ways, because I don't want people to think like, oh, people just know it and they can write it down. Like, you can write it and then come back to it in a couple days or a couple hours and then look at it and write it again and come back to it. It doesn't have to be something that you just do in one go, because you have to really take the time to like visualize. I mean, even for you to tell someone else what it's like, you have to take the time to visualize it at least, So even if you don't write it the first time and you just think about it the first couple of times, it's all okay. It's just getting there eventually in a faster manner than a year and a half. No, I'm just kidding.
And if you really have like writer's block and you just can't think of anything to write, you just don't know how to write, you don't like sitting in front of a computer or in front of a notepad, you can even do like the voice memo thing on your phone.
Yes.
You can record yourself talking and just be like, this sounds super cool, this is what I'd like to do, blah blah blah. You can get all these videos, put them together, and then send that to a copywriter and they can write it out and make it look all nice and fancy.
Absolutely. And so since you've written out this vision, you printed it and hung it up on your wall, like how much, you see it every single day when you go in, right? How often do you like reread it and things like that? Number one. And number two, like, how have you seen your business grow since then?
Well, I would love to say that I read it every day, but alas, I do not. Sometimes things get crazy and I don't read it every day. But I do like to read it at least a couple of times a week, remind myself what we're striving for, what that's going to look like, just everything that's on it. And then remind myself of how I can write the next one even better. Cause I'm like, man, I could have used better verbiage there. Like every time I see it, but that's all right. This is what I chose. This is the way that it's written. So, at least a couple of times a week. And then as far as business growth, I think we've seen significant business growth, whether that's a direct relation of the vivid vision being written or not. I couldn't tell you definitively, but when we wrote this was in February of 2021. And from February of 2021 to today, we went from 42 units to 239 units plus another 88 that we're getting ready to close. So I feel like there was a lot of traction there. Definitely it was 2 years or maybe even 3 years prior to that of a lot of kind of like groundwork development and build up to that point. Definitely was not an overnight thing, but I feel like getting that crystal clear clarity vision of where we wanted to go, we were all able to get on the same page practically immediately and just shoot off like a rocket and go after it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it reminds me, it's like a little fable, but it's about like these three men who are laying bricks. And one guy, he says his job is just that he's a bricklayer. Another guy says that he helps build walls. And then the third one, he says that he builds churches where everyone can come together and congregate. And so it doesn't matter what you're building. You can build whatever you want, but when everybody on your team all thinks that you're building this greatness instead of just being a bricklayer, it creates a lot of momentum, and so many things are different, right? Like a lot of people at the beginning go into this, I want financial freedom. Well, what's after that? Like, what does financial freedom mean to you, right? Because after that, that's really what you're going for. Because if you're going just for like this random monetary value, you'll make up reasons why it needs to either grow and then keep growing, right? Like, oh no, I'm not ready to do this yet, or I'm not ready to do that yet. So it's like when you can see it and what that's like, it helps everybody, because everyone like on your team like can even see like their own tunnel at the end of the vivid vision as well. And it's like, boom, we got this. It makes a huge difference.
Definitely.
Yeah, one other thing I want to point out is like, so something that's worked, I think, really well for us, and I want to point out because you've done this for you as well, is like you've hung basically your giant goal list, right? Your vivid vision, your guiding light, and all of your goals wrapped up into this document, and it's hanging on your wall. You see that every single day, right? So you're reminded, even if you don't read it every single day, your subconscious sees it and is reminding, right? And you're working in the background, like your subconscious is working in the background. So for us as well, like we have every beginning of every year, we write down our goals for that year. And then we break it down into, 1 year goals to complete by the end of the year, 3-year goals, and then 5-year plus goals. We have all those written out in note cards, and we tape them all to our fridge.
Yeah.
And so we get to see that every single day, right? Like
all the snacks
that I eat, I'm seeing it like 20 times a day, right? So like, and just seeing that, and then just pausing and reflecting on like, okay, what are our goals? Like, and then that helps us develop our weekly, quarterly, and then monthly, weekly, daily goals, right? And it's just provides so much clarity. And I think that is really the guiding light, what drives you every single day. Once you have that clarity and it gives you that confidence, then nothing can stop you.
Boom. You heard it here first, folks.
I'm curious, like what does drive you?
What drives me? That's a good question, because sometimes I'm curious as to what drives me. Like, but I feel like I've always had a drive, and I'm someone that doesn't quit. Like if I want to learn something, I really want to do something, I just don't stop. And maybe some folks think that is annoying. I don't know, but like I wanted to learn how to play the drums when I was 10 years old. I wanted to learn so bad. I was playing on pots and pans at my parents wouldn't buy me a drum set at first. Of course, I'm 10. I don't have any money. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna play on some pots and pans. I didn't have drumsticks either. So I had like just my hands or wooden spoons or something. And I just tried to make it work. And of course I sucked at the beginning, but I just kept trying and trying. Finally, they noticed that I was trying like daily to try to learn this. So they finally got me lessons. They ended up buying me a drum set. 15 years later, I'd say I'm a pretty okay drummer.
Are you going to start a band?
It's one of those things. It seems like every time you get around musicians, everyone's like, man, we should start a band. I wonder if it's the same way with real estate investors. You get around them and they're like, we should partner up and do some deals.
What do you mean? That is 100%. Yeah.
It's the same way.
Hey, we just met. We exchanged 3 words to each other. Let's partner. Deal.
I know. It's the same way in the musician world. Folks they see you and realize that you're a good drummer or a good musician. They hear you play or something. They're like, dude, we should start a band. It should be freaking awesome and like bluesy or bluegrass or country or heavy metal or whatever it is. And then of course nothing ever comes of it. So I've tried to start many bands. They have not come to fruition. So instead I just fool around on my own set at the house, and then I play at church typically on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah, I like that. I'm glad though that you actually do it publicly. Yeah. I didn't know if you were just still doing it like inside by yourself.
Right. So it's funny because my two favorite, or the 2 genres that I play the most, so to say, there's 3 genres I really like. On Sundays, I'm like a worship, play worship music. And then like Monday through Saturday is country music and heavy metal. Those are like my 2 favorite genres to jam to, because country music, I just like country music. It's real laid back. I like the musical style of it, just the lyrics inside the music. And then heavy metal is the most complex music like to play. And I like the challenge. I like every time I hear a new heavy metal song that sounds cool, it's difficult for me to play instead of just getting on and it being super easy. So I like the challenge, and that's why I like that genre.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So one thing
Renette really has learned something new, and that's cool.
Yeah, Josh is just full of surprises, which is really cool. Just keep coming out like Pandora's box. I want to back up and say something that you kind of touched on, and that is like with you, you don't really know what drives you, but it's just like you have this drive, right? Insatiable, like hustle, tenacity, whatever you want to call it, like it's just never ending. And like I noticed that a lot. I say this a lot on this podcast, I think, but I do notice this a lot. It's like successful real estate investors have that, right? We have that drive. Like, I don't know, whether or not you have your goals written on your fridge or you have a vivid vision hang on your wall, whatever, like some people just have goals in their mind. I mean, Grant Cardone even mentions that he writes down his goals every single day or every single night before he goes to bed on a notepad. And he has like thousands of these notepads that he has saved up because he writes down his goals every single night or whatever. But like just being aligned and making sure that you are aligned with what your why is and what your end goal is. And then having that, because that is aligned, you have this insatiable like tenacity or hustle. And I feel like a lot of successful real estate investors, whether that be, multifamily syndicators or wholesalers or flippers, things like that, like that's what the drive they have. It not only applies to real estate investors, I guess it applies to all successful entrepreneurs as well, yeah. Which is really incredible. So I love hearing that because sometimes I'm like, wow, I get so consumed with it and I'm laser focused and I'm just going 100 miles an hour straight ahead. But when I know that everybody else who's successful in this industry is doing the same thing, I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy.
So what drives you guys? I mean, what when you think about it, do you guys know exactly what drives you? I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm just weird and I don't know.
So, I mean, I think the biggest thing for us is like when we're running down, or I would say running down or chasing, but like the end goal, soon in the near term, like I say within 10 years, whatever, like I can retire from the military. So like we were making sure that we were set up where when I retire, we don't never have to do anything ever again. And we are slow,
like
W2 wise. Yeah.
Right.
So like we're also slowly increasing our passive investments. And then that'll basically outweigh our active investments by the time I hit my retirement as well. But I'll let Susie.
I was just going to say, so like, I really like hanging out with Michael. So if we got to the point where his W2, he was able to retire, but couldn't because we did not put in enough effort for the last 7 years, that is the drive. Like I would be so soul crushed if I had to be like, no, I mean, it's sad. Like, and it came about because, so we've had 3 lockdowns total. First one was a little over 100 days. I have no idea how long the second was because that one was a blur. The third one was like 6 months. But for the first one, like he was with me all day, every day, because everybody was sent home from work. And we found out we have a lot of fun all day, every day, There's just, I mean, when you can only stay in your house, you can't leave except for once a day. It's cool. It's like, oh, wow, here are all these games I didn't know I was way better at than Michael. We started the book club together and that was really cool. It was just like, because you think if I have all this time, I'm going to get bored. So many people say that. I don't know if I'll ever want to stop working. What if I get bored? Literally, when you are forced to be in your house with your spouse, you never get bored. Trust me. I mean, I didn't, and neither did he. He's not saying anything, but he didn't get bored.
No.
So that's where the drive came from.
It was a lot of fun. And that's part of our drive, Josh. And the other part is like our ultimate goal is to be able to give back and giving back to that. Be in a position where we can give back. And I think we mentioned this several times on this podcast as well, but like our whole thing is like being able to serve beyond our 4 walls and be able to leverage my background in education and Susie's background in education and coaching and mentoring and stuff like that, blending that together and to be able to go to, countries that are less fortunate than us and understand what their needs are and building schools, and not westernized schools, but schools that really tailor to what that society needs. And that's because basic education solves so many problems as far as like with the economy and poverty and all these other issues. And so that's what we ultimately want to do. So
that was a lot of vivid vision.
Yeah.
Iterations later.
Yeah, love it. I'll hand the hosting baton back to you.
No, thanks for that.
Yeah. So Josh, this is an amazing conversation about Vivid Vision, which and I
is
would
actually
love,
really cool.
yeah, it was really cool. We never talked about Vivid Vision on our podcast before, so this is really awesome. So I'm glad you're able to share for somebody who's actually completed Vivid Vision and is executing it flawlessly. And it's really exciting to see you just crushing it in the space, Josh. Unfortunately, this brings us to the end of the show, which brings us to the Adventurous 4. These are 4 exploratory questions we ask all of our guests. So the first question, Josh, if you're ready, is
Hit me with it.
all right. Where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
I've always wanted to go to Italy. My last name's Ferrari. I think I'm half Italian because my grandfather came over from Italy to the United States. Does that make me half, or does that make me a quarter?
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends.
I don't know. One or the other. I'm Italian.
Yeah, I guess it'd be a quarter. I was just thinking, I guess technically it'd be a quarter.
Yeah, and I've always wanted to go to Italy. I don't know. I don't know where in Italy. I don't know what city. I just had a conversation with an investor like 2 weeks ago who has actually been in Italy for the last 60 days. I was like, that is just the coolest thing ever. So Italy is probably somewhere I've always wanted to go.
Awesome. So the second question is, what is the number one thing on your bucket list and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve it?
Bucket list. I gotta say the number one thing on my bucket list has to be flying aerobatic airplanes.
Oh, wow.
I've always wanted to get my private pilot's license. First of all, I just never had the money. So I'm trying to get using real estate investing to get on the path to do that.
Yeah.
Once I get my license, I want to actually own my own airplane. I guess now that I think about it, maybe I'll own more than one. I want to own one that I can travel around the world with my family. Just wake up one day and be like, guys, let's go to Disney World. Like, no need to buy tickets. Let's just get on the plane and go. So I think that would be freaking awesome. Plus, I've just always loved flying. And then the aerobatic side, I think would just be an expensive hobby, but it would be so fun to be able to go out there and do barrel rolls and twists and turns and just anything you can imagine. My wife says that she's like deathly afraid. She thinks I'm going to die. She doesn't want me to do it. But I'm like, babe, this is like the biggest thrill ever. It's like better than a roller coaster, better than skydiving or anything. It would be so much fun.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. We haven't heard that. So I like that.
So the third question, Josh, is what is one piece of advice for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
If you want to start passively investing, like you mentioned earlier with you guys' Vivid Vision, I think education solves a lot of problems. Just start learning about the industry, about the specific niche that you're interested in, whether that looks like multifamily or some kind of single family flip or whatever it is that like fires you up. You know, there's so many ways to make money in real estate. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you choose. It more so matters like what really gets you excited, because if you're invested in something lame and boring, then you're probably not going to really want to do it. It's like we were talking about earlier with working out and creating the Vivid Vision. Just do something that's cool, that you think's awesome. So figuring out what that is and then starting to learn about that. And then once you have a base knowledge there, you would start meeting folks in the industry, getting to know, like, and trust them, and then eventually pull the trigger.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And then the last and final question is, if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
Ooh, unlimited resources.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Got to think about it.
If I had unlimited resources, I feel like I would want to teach all the little kiddos in school about like financial literacy. Like, it doesn't have to be real estate investing or stock investing. It doesn't have to be any specific type of investing, just being financially literate, what that looks like, how the system plays you and how you can play the system by just understanding what money is, how to use it, work it, flow it, invest with it, make money with it. Because I feel like nobody is prepared for life when they exit high school or even college.
Right? Yes.
Pay all this money, like, or you get out of high school and then they're like, okay, now you need to spend 200 grand on college to get a degree to go work somewhere that's going to pay you like $50,000 a year. It's like, what?
You're paying that 200 grand for the next 10, 15 years of your life.
Yeah. I mean, not knocking it. Obviously it works, especially for specific types of things like being a doctor or an attorney or what have you. But if you just understood more about finances before making that decision, you might make a different decision. So that would probably be it.
Thank you
I
for
love
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do
that's great.
too, because it's huge. Exactly everything that you said about it is so important.
Yeah. So before we end the show, Josh, I would like you to share a couple things with our listeners. Number one, how they can get a hold of you. And number two, if you want to share with our audience as well, like the capital raising thing that you're doing, like the little challenge that you have going on.
Yeah. So how to get a hold of me, ferraricapital.com. That's FERRARI capital.com. All of our, literally everything, the social media, the podcast, the blog, the free ebook, all that stuff's on there. Just go to the website. That's how you can connect with us. And then as far as the challenge goes, we launched the challenge back in August of this year.
Yeah.
It's a little 30-day blip. It's basically, it's trying to teach you how to raise $1 million in 30 days. If you fail and you don't do it, that's fine. I say fail, it's a poor choice of words. If you don't succeed, you're not necessarily a failure. You now understand and have the groundwork to be able to do so in the future. It may just take a little bit more work to get there. So we've had a couple of people that did really awesome with it. We had others that didn't do so well. They were like, I did all the videos, and not a lot of people reached out to me. And they're like, but I also just started like last week, barely been in the industry. And it's like, okay, so maybe it's going to take a little bit more groundwork before you start to see $1 million in 30-day type of success. But now you understand and know how all of that works. So that challenge, I think you go to creativecapitalchallenge.com and you can see all that information. And
Cool.
that's
awesome.
where you can find out about that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. We'll make sure to definitely have it in the show notes. But Josh, thank you so much again for joining us. It's always been a lot of fun, and this was no exception.
Loved it. Love being here. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.
Woo!